we're still riding under the theme driving organizational performance and agility with project management. Now, this is an insert. The next plenary is an insert from yesterday. The marathon really was a hike in itself, but we are poised to continue what the original plan is for the rest of the conference. Therefore, we would go back to plenary number 4 from last night. That didn't even start at all. To do so would be we will be looking at the topic project procurement fraud risk, the warning signs. Yes. And this person is an astute digital and cybercrime investigator himself. Also, he leads the team of financial crime at Fidelity Bank. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's appreciate RANSFORD Nana ADDO Jr. to do this presentation with us.
If you have the opportunity of witnessing a presentation in flooding, and you are called to present on flooding, and Noah and his children are seated at the front seat. No, Edwin, don't go, please. Edwin, don't go. Please, I beg you, don't go. Ladies and gentlemen, Edwin gave me my first opportunity to work. He took me under a national service, and he injected something in me. I want to say thank you to Edwin Provincial. I'm so grateful. From the street of Legon, wanting to enter the corporate world, he gave me my first job. And I get emotional about it, that for the first time I have to speak on the same platform with the man who gave me my first job. The first thing he told me is that, young man, you are here to do national service, but you are not here to produce, to stock. And do you remember? But you produce and you have stocked, and today I need to give back. Now, people have asked questions, when will fraud stop? And I asked, why do you want fraud to stop? So that all the certification that I have paid for, how am I going to live? How am I going to feed my children? We caught a guy in Teshinungwa Estate, Moses Lade, and he said, sir, I beg you, don't let me go to jail. I promise you I won't steal again. I said, you must steal. I have to steal because that is what I do for a living. My customers are fraudsters. And then when I wake up, I think fraud. But you see, the other side of it is that it is in Scripture. And Scripture knows, you go to Proverbs chapter 20, verse 17. It says that food that is gotten through fraud tastes sweet in the mouth of a man, but later it will become gravel. So immediately I read that scripture, I said, you are an apostle. You are here to fulfill Scripture. My job as a corporate investigator is to make sure that I convert whatever has been stolen into gravels in people's mouths. So my job here this morning is to raise some form of awareness on the fraud risk that comes with project procurement and give you some warning signs on how you can deal with them. Okay, I was driving through the eastern region some time ago, and I saw a whole road stretch taken off like carpet that has been folded up. And I asked myself, who did this project? What went on? I was somewhere in the northern region, and I saw containers full of cement. They had been there for 3 years, caked. And I was worried. I asked myself, why do we have all these cement caked? And somebody said, the project manager lives in that apartment. Day 2 of the workshop, I met him. And he said, after paying people what they demanded for, I did not have enough to execute the project. Ladies and gentlemen, project fraud is real. And we have gotten to the point where, the triple constraint theory in project management that says that time, cost, and what else? Scope. They are dependent on each other. So when one is impacted, the others are also impacted. But I can tell you on authority as a fraud examiner that fraud impacts all the three. And therefore we need to deal with it. Now when I was sitting there, I asked myself, so to do this, when we look at, we try and attempt the definition of project procurement fraud, we'll look at the four main schemes and some of the corner ones that we don't talk about usually. When we are done, we'll look at the warning signs. And then we'll attempt to give some tips on how an internal fraudster looks like. And then we'll also look at how to prevent and detect some of them. Okay. Now, project procurement fraud is a type of fraud that occurs when individuals within your organization, please take note of within your organization, influence project initiation, manipulate the bidding process, misrepresent the project cost, and delivery in order to make or obtain personal gain. Please take notice of personal gain. Now back to the story about the 13 containers of cement that were cake. They've been there for 3 years. And the man said, before I won that contract to put up that structure, the monies that have been collected from me by individuals, even the security men were demanding money before I even walk in. They'll tell me that the man is not there. You can't see him. Even the security man is also demanding kickbacks. And where is this money going to come from? The project cost. Attempt to look at the impact of fraud on projects. If you look at, again, that road, and I was very sad because I had used that road before. I went back years later, and as if somebody just came to roll a carpet off that road. The whole road was gone. And who did that project? What went into the costing? What went into the scoping? Maybe somebody paid so much to so many people who took their own share from quality, and because of that, the road doesn't exist anymore. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the impacts of fraud on projects is that it leads to abandonment of projects. You see buildings that are there, huge buildings, it's never going on. Because the money that is supposed to be used, they have taken their share even before the money was paid. And unfortunately, as project managers, this is one of the things we need to deal with. And I'll explain why we need to deal with it. The next thing that happens is that fraud within projects increases the cost. Because Godfather is demanding 20%. The boys who follow Godfather are also demanding some. So either you inflate the project, the actual project cost, so you can pay Godfather and his disciples. I hear people say, this industry is big, this industry is big. But the fraud industry is $1 billion business. Godfather says that I invested in bonds and there was an exchange program. I have invested in real estate and they are demolition exercise. I will invest in fraud going forward. So Godfather has positioned people in places, some of them in political offices, some of them in some ministries, some of them in some private organizations, that you have sent you there for a purpose whatever goes on, remember Godfather has a share. Ladies and gentlemen, in very serious environment, and especially those of you who have worked with multinational organizations, when you engage in project fraud, regulators will sanction you. They will fine you. They may even take your license from you. Another key thing that we have ignored is that litigation and reputational damages comes as one of the effects or consequences of project fraud. Lastly, people have lost their lives because of fraud. Where we know very well that somebody has taken about 300 tons of iron rods to put up a structure, but because of the greediness of Godfather and his disciples, they need to pay some people within the organization. The one who even thought of the project is demanding some. The project manager has become so strict, so you need to cushion yourself by greasing his palms. At the end of the day, we are all in the building having fun. Human beings are dead. So project fraud leads to loss of life. I asked a question, but because of time, maybe during questions, you rather ask me a question. Whether you have experienced one before, and what were the lessons that you learned from it? You see, every project procurement, or procurement in general, goes through 4 stages. The pre-solicitation, where you do a need recognition. Oh, I think that we need to change almost all the cell sites from this type to that type. We need to develop the specifications. We need to make a determination of the procurement methods and how we are going to award it. All these things are done at the first stage. Stage number 2, the bid solicitation, where you call people, we need this, so you can apply whether you can give it to us. Bid preparation, and then bid submission, where you invite people to come and bid. The evaluation and award of the contract also goes on at the 3rd stage. During this period, there are times you can even revise, the proposals, and then you select a vendor. That is where Godfather and his people will pop champagne. The post-award delivery. After all these 3 stages are done, now this is where you need to deliver what you said you are going to deliver. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the interesting thing is that within all these 4 stages, fraud and dishonesty, at each of these stages and activities listed, can occur. And I'm 100% certain that there's a possibility for somebody in the boardroom, for somebody who sits at procurement, the project officer, or even the user of the service that is being initiated, can enrich themselves at every stage and the activities I have mentioned. And I'm going to take you through that. How are they going to do that? 4 main schemes. The first scheme is where you have a collusion between the vendor and an employee. When you have vendors paying employees for them to influence the process, it's amazing what they can do. Yesterday I heard 2 good heads are better than 1. But when these guys get together, oh goodness, they will do magic. We'll go through that scheme. The next scheme is what we call defective pricing schemes. And then performance schemes. And then the 4th one, which I won't talk about here, it does not involve any outsider. where the themselves go and have a meeting and manipulate the process of procurement within the organization. They can decide that, hey, let all of us come together. Let us not go and bid. Let's frustrate them so that we can influence the pricing that exists. But I'm not going to focus on that. I want to focus on the internal one, because that is where there's a lot of strength. Now, having said all these things, there are some things that you need to take notice of. The bribery and the corruption side of it, the conflict of interest, where Godfather is bidding, and Godfather's son is a procurement. And I use son in the form of not biological son, but somebody who has influence on an officer within the project team or the procurement team. And the last one, which is very dangerous. Fraud examiners know that asset misappropriation is the most dangerous category of fraud, where you would think that, oh, nobody has stolen anything, nobody has taken any money, but the pickups that are supposed to be used for that project are being used on the field for personal gains. In Nigeria, I went to do some work, and the MD complained to me that, hey, we bought cars for all these relationship managers, but hardly do we see the cars. And I said, how many did you buy? So for all the 85 of them. I said, do you have the car numbers? So myself and Yemi and Dele, we decided to check what these cars are being used for. They were being used for Uber. Being fueled by the organization to achieve organizational goal, but they were using it for Uber in that project. Asset misappropriation. Amazing. Now let's start with the first scheme. And like I told you, my job is to make sure that Proverbs chapter 20, verse 17 is fulfilled. We teach the schemes so that when you see, you can identify them. Scheme number 1, vendors and employees coming together. The first one is what you call need recognition. Some persons who decide to take kickbacks, take bribes, and the bribes come in different forms. You may go and check all the accounts, you not see the bribe, because the bribes are paid in cash and sometimes in kind. Now, when they receive these kickbacks, what they do is that even things that you do not need in your organization, they put a proposal together. Even everybody in RMF will see it. Now, let me ask this question. I call it the irony of the 4 Ps. How can you go into an organization? Every day there's a project. First P. Every day there's a procurement ongoing. Second P. There are so many platforms in that organization solving technology problems. Third P. And problems are still huge. Need recognition. Because that platform that you have can be upgraded to do 13 things, but Godfather has given money to that young man to say that, I have a guy in China who has a system that can do A. So tell them we need A, and A will be implemented. Say amen. Now, I have investigated cases where I have gone into people's emails, and I have seen them writing to vendors to tell them what they should come and present to the board and the CEO. And they are inside. So they are telling you that, tell them we need this and this and this. When this presentation is done, he's seated there. CEO turns and asks, do you think we need it. We need it. But Godfather has given him some money. So what is not needed must be very needed. Need recognition is the first category. Because of time, I have put some of the warning signs there. You can read it later. But in a typical organization, as a PM, when you go there, to see whether this is going on, you will see a lot of platforms that have been rendered useless. Oh, why did you implement this? Oh, at that time, the CEO wanted something that, can be real time and all that. And immediately you ask questions about why we cannot use other ones. This young man gets offended in that meeting. Because every day there must be projects so that he can make money for himself and Godfather. The next category is what you call bid tailoring. After need recognition, bid tailoring. And bid tailoring has 3 sub-elements. The first one is a narrow element. When it's time to put the proposals together, the specification together, they make it so narrow. If it is laptops, they can even say that we need 2,000 laptops and they must have light that blink. So if you do not have that color, you are out. Because Godfather has told him that he has bought some laptops from China and they are 2,000, so you must buy 2,000. And the color must suit the one that Godfather has. And the light must blink. So he will intentionally narrow the specification so that among all the vendors in the world, it is only Godfather who can win. The next one is the opposite of the first one, where Godfather does not have anything to offer. So you make the specification so broad that anybody at all, including Godfather, can come in. Because if you give specifications, Godfather will lose out. The third category is vague. They don't give anything. They don't specify anything. So that at the end of the day, when others start writing, they'll go and copy what the others are bringing so that Godfather can also put in his bid. Now, when you have an organization where only one vendor keep on winning the contract, you have to make sure that you see it as a red flag. What it means is that somebody is manipulating the bid. Now, when you have a process where people request for bid and there's no clear specification, then you have to know that somebody within the organization is milking the organization through this scheme. This is another interesting one. Bid manipulation. Now, this time around, so some time ago I started gaining weight, and I'm still gaining weight. So I decided to go and see a doctor, physician, who referred me to a dietitian. And the man interviewed, he put tape measure on my tummy, my thigh, and all that. What sort of embarrassment is this? So he asked me, what's your favorite? I said, Banku. How many can you eat? I said, 3 balls. He said, you need to reduce it to 1. I was sad, but I had a strategy. So I went home, I was served 3 balls. I told my wife, the dietitian said, make it 1. So put the 3 together and give me 1. Yes. Now you see, I am manipulating my own diet. Now the interesting thing is this. These guys within the project space and the procurement space will give you the impression that they have some controls in place, but they are manipulating it. The first type is that when it's time to do a publication of the bid, they will intentionally do the publication during a time that nobody is hearing anything. Kofi Annan is dead. That week, everybody will be mourning Kofi Annan. Send it to the media. And it will be somewhere in a small corner of the daily graphic. Because Godfather knows the page. So you see that the number of vendors who are supposed to even come and put in their bid, you see only Godfather. Because they send out the bid into the media the week Kofi Annan died. And they even put it in a very small corner of the daily graphic. Less like me, if I do not listen to the dietitian, I'll be stubborn. So I will listen, but I'll manipulate and make sure that I'll still get my 3 balls in one. And that's what they do. Either they do this or they'll do it on holidays. The next one is to ensure that they discard or make people's bids get lost. They will also accept bids late. If they tell you that, okay, so this is supposed to, the closing day is supposed to be 30th. By 31st, they will receive the bid of Godfather. And I'll explain why. Because they will leak the information of the other bidders to Godfather, so that if it is 1 million, Godfather will do 1,000,001 cedi. So Godfather will win the contract. They can disqualify people. They say, hey, we said you should bring it on Friday, and you brought it on Friday, but when you came, it was after lunch. You are disqualified. It's all part of the game to make sure that Godfather wins the bid. They extend the bid opening date without any justification. And lastly, they will open the bid prematurely without any explanation to anybody. Now, when it comes to the actual performance of the project, non-performing, I happened to do internship with an NGO, and I was very passionate. I've always had passion. Meanwhile, I was just in level 200. And they had gone to put a proposal telling them that me, RANSFORD standing here at that time, I had 2 masters in social welfare, something. And they had won the project. And do you know how much they were paying me? $2,000 a month. Meanwhile, they were not giving me transportation. So when it comes to the performance, they will show you nice things on paper. When it comes to the delivery, they will use intents to perform for you. Cost mismatching, another dangerous one. So usually when they are coming to bid, they will give you the cost. When it is time for them to bring to your warehouse, they will bring you 20 ml. The last one is what you call change order abuse. Change order. So you have an agreement that, okay, if there are changes, you can introduce new cost and all that. You see Godfather and his people. Every week, there's a change order. And some of the costs that they will bring, you cannot even explain. But that young man in the PM office, he's the one explaining on behalf of the vendor. Defective pricing. Inflated labor cost. I gave you an example. As I was sitting in that office, they said I had 2 masters. They will tell you that we are going to use 5 people with master's degree, pay them maybe $100 every day, and we're going to run for about 6 months. If you sit down and do the calculation, this is something they can do in a week. And they don't need people with master's degree to do it. Inflated material cost. I went to Nigeria some time ago, and I saw a warehouse full of materials. And back to the head office of my organization, they were requesting for more. Because if we use the ones that we already have, Godfather will not make money. How do you prevent and detect this? But there are 4 things you should look out for. The enemies from within and the internal fraudsters, they show some key characteristics. The first one is that if you compare their lifestyle and the salary they are paid, there's a huge mismatch. There was a gentleman I knew who was driving a $60,000 Benz, and I was earning twice what he was earning, and I was driving Honda. When I saw the car at the car park, I whispered to one of my investigators that, get this guy's file in HR, let me see how much he earns. Ladies and gentlemen, we put surveillance on him. In less than 3 months, we found out that some of the key vendors we deal with, The companies were his. Warning sign number 2. These people do not want to go on leave. The day you ask them, take some days off, no. They will come in clutches, limping like that, because they must execute Godfather's bid. The day they will leave their desk, there's a brewer company in Nigeria. There was a man who was at the stores. He had been there for over 20 years. The CEO thanked him and promoted him. They clapped for him. He said, do you have anything to say? He said, yes. I like the honor and all that, but I like the stores. He had an accident. He was in coma. When he woke up, he asked himself, where am I? They said, you're in hospital. He looked at it. What is today's date? He ran to the stores. Not knowing all the curtains in front had drinks in them. But the ones behind, he had a different business and distribution, and the guy had built 3 mansions in Lagos. Even if they are sick, they won't go on leave. Ladies and gentlemen, these people have an unexplained bond with some vendors. They are so close that anytime you see him drinking, he's drinking with that vendor. And hope it ties you for you to find something wrong with a product that the vendor or a project that the vendor is doing. The guy will fight you. The last thing is that they don't like sharing duties. Lawyer Muhammad was talking about job rotation. No. The day you ask them that, congratulations, you've been on this project for too long. We want to promote you and send you somewhere. No. I am not greedy. I take the promotion, but I want to be here. If you ask them to share duty, they won't do it. And that is a red flag. Having done that, I think this will be my last slide and I move. Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing which is not on this slide is education and awareness, like what I'm doing now. For you to prevent and detect this, you need to talk about it. You need to teach it. If you come to the African Academy at Lagos, this is a topic that is treated 2 days. And immediately you teach some of the executives these things, the managers these things. They get the awareness, and Godfather and his boys are not happy. The next thing we need to do is to ensure that we put monitoring schemes in place. Now, some of these guys are the same people who are initiating the need recognition. These are the same people who are part of the bidding process, drawing the specification. They are the same people also looking at the performance of the project. What you have done is to give your whole organization to them, and they make huge money. What you need to do is to manage the vendors. Don't joke with background checks. That project you have started is at risk because that vendor has done things to other people. Their projects were not done and were not complete. He spent the money and he dashed out. They are in court at criminal court 3, and you are going to hire him to do another project. A little bit due diligence on these vendors will solve some of these problems. Now, segregation of duties and dual control. Why should one person start a whole process and then end it? Sometimes we put costs as an issue. Oh, so that same gentleman who is the one drawing the specification is the same person who is also monitoring the delivery of that project. Lie. Godfather and his people will milk you dry. Lastly, you need to establish clear procedures. In some of the organizations that I have investigated for, when these things happen and we notice that over millions of CDs have gone into people's pockets, we ask, can I see your process for bid initiation? You know, it's like we've always done it. So it's like a custom. Yeah. And it's not written anywhere. So there are times that, Chief, we go to court, we present evidence, and their lawyers will come and say, can we see your process for initiating this bid? It doesn't exist. I was taught one thing years ago, if it's not written, it didn't happen. Go and sit back, document clear processes, put in those controls so that Godfather and his people cannot take advantage of it. Ladies and gentlemen, I will end here and take questions, but before I go, I'm a storyteller. In a village somewhere I come from, there was an old man, over 80 years, very intelligent old man. And the chiefs, the queen mothers, they used to come to this old man for advice. On any issue, they would come to him. In that same village, there was a small boy, 6-year-old boy. He was toothless. And because he has lost some teeth, he thought he was the same as the old man, who also did not have teeth. So he went to this old man and said, old man, everybody is saying you are wise in this town. I want to check whether indeed you are wise. In my hand, I have a bird. And indeed, he had done this. I want you to tell me whether the bird in my hand is dead or alive. So the old man looked at him and laughed. And he said, if I tell you this bird is alive, you are going to press it hard for the bird to die. I will look stupid. If I also tell you this bird is dead, you will leave it to fly. I will still look stupid. Whether the bird is dead or alive is in your hands. Ladies and gentlemen, whether you allow Godfather and his disciples to milk your project is in your hands. Thank you.
Let's appreciate Ransford with a huge round of applause, please, and let the questions begin. Yes, I see one hand up here.
Okay, my name is Emmanuel. So yesterday there was after William's presentation, he made a statement that MTN finishes all their projects within the year. We don't carry over. So that influenced the question from the back. The gentleman asked, he said in his company, they have a lot of projects, but it seems they are not able to finish all of them. And from today's talk, I think there is another aspect of the answer which he got, which wasn't discussed yesterday, which is, obviously fraud and also all these things. Project costs is influenced by all these fraudulent activities. So at some point, you are not able to even finish your project because somebody is doing something mischievous at the back. I just wanted to add that to that answer. And then my question to you, yesterday, Mr. Edwin's presentation, he mentioned stakeholders. That's the tankers and blah, blah, blah. They have some influence on their operations and all that. When you have people like that who are powerful in your organization, you want to have a rigid organization without fraud and all these things. But these guys have so much influence. These stakeholders can have so much influence on the processes. You want to do what is right, but pushing yourself or pushing these people to the corner will end you at home. You lose your job, right? So when it comes to people like that, how do you think we can, what can we do as project managers to, take care of these kind of powerful stakeholders so that we can, avoid the fraudulent activities?
Okay, very good question, thank you. Now, in an organization where you have some individuals who are bigger than another organization, there's a problem. And the leaders here, it is very important that you have a culture where everyone is seen as important. The first thing that I do when I go into an organization is to introduce a whistleblowing, an anonymous whistleblowing portal. Everywhere that I have worked, If I'm supposed to manage fraud for your organization, you must have that. And everybody can be reported. And it is not only one person who received that report, but about 5 people. A representative from the board, 2 from executive, 2 from management, and then an investigator. So when the report hits like that, we need to start the investigation. But more importantly, like Lawyer Mahama said, you need to make sure that there are some of the people, you give them funds, you praise them, and you need to be wise. But keep on documenting your concerns. Because tomorrow, when somebody comes, you won't say that I saw it. Where is it? I didn't tell anybody. Where did you document it? Nowhere. Document your grievances, document what you have seen, and make sure that even if the powers that be override what you have seen, you have left a mark that I saw this and I wrote it down.
We'll take another one from the back.
Thank you very much. My name is Eric. RANSFORD, thanks a lot. While you were presenting, at a point, I felt that almost all of us in the room were affected in one way, in terms of fraud. I don't want to believe that we've been doing it, but it's quite common. It's quite common for you to call your friend and say, oh, we are having this particular thing coming up in our office. Can you put up a bit? Let's be real. We've all done it before. We are not praying to be. Okay.
Please stop for yourself.
Okay, I withdraw the statement.
I don't want to lose my job.
I withdraw the statement.
Yeah.
But I want everybody to reflect on the issues you have mentioned. But thank you very much. I think that's legitimate. There's one thing I wanted to mention. In every business that is profitable, you'll find people doing it. And fraud seems to be one of the most profitable business in this country. And for me, unless we collectively make fraud unprofitable, the education you and many others are giving will make us or them professionalize their skills in doing more fraud. Why? Because the issues that you have just mentioned, irrespective of how much documentation you put in place, you find people still circumventing the whole process. And the list of possible fraud that you have mentioned, from the very basic one of calling your friend to tell him to bait, changing the terms of reference to suit somebody, are all elements that we easily forget about and think that it is the big $1 check that they come to give you. Unfortunately, a number of these fraud cases, we are renaming it as lobbying fee or kickback or thank you. And because we all accept this whole issue of a thank you, if I am a supplier, I tend to then add the thank you amount to the bid so that I can come and say thank you. And if we continuously collect this kind of thank you, we should expect that we will have many more issues of procurement than the amount available for the real work. And let me add that I worked in the Northern Region before, where in a particular village, almost 1,000 school chairs were donated to a school that nobody knows about. It was never used. Later on, when we checked, one chair was costing almost 600 Ghana cedis, which is never true. Currently, I'm dealing with a case where a rim of paper rim, is supplied at 120 Ghana cedis per rim. And the person has a contract to supply 200 of those rims. If you get that, can't you buy a Lexus? You are likely to go and buy a Lexus with that kind of rim. So coming back to the issue of Ghana, I think that every day we hear of ministries, government projects doing a lot of procurement. But how to address it has never been answered. What is the court doing? Who is willing to take them to the court for us to prosecute people and ensure that fraud is unprofitable? Otherwise, for me, as long as there's profit in fraud, you will find people doing it. And once again, and I'm not saying that we have people who are fraud here, but we are not fraudsters, but we cannot hide from some of the very elementary things that you have mentioned as signs of fraud. So all those who didn't go on leave, unfortunately, I'm one of them. I didn't go on leave for them. I didn't go on leave for the past 2 years, but please, I didn't do any fraud. I don't do procurement. Thank you very much.
All right, I see 2 hands up, and that's all time would allow us for. I unfortunately.
Okay, let me quickly say this before you go. Now, one of the key things that I meet with project managers and I tell them is that you need to have a simple ABC mindset. Okay? We like accepting gifts too much. It's a cultural thing. But there's a saying in Akan that Obi or Papa know how. There was a young man in my hall who used to buy food for me. One day I had cooked rice with oil. He says, hey, stop it. Let me go and buy fufu for you at Asanka Locals. I was following. We got to the potter's lord. He was insulting the potters there. Old men, he was insulting them. And I said, Jingo, but you can't be insulting somebody as old as your father. He said, hey, you don't have money, but you have sense. I have lost appetite. Fufu no krami nibium. It's okay, I won't eat again. Meanwhile, I had given my rice and oil to the boys to eat. And do you know what I told him? So only maybe, when people keep on giving you gifts and you accept them like that, that's the beginning of the compromise process. The second one, that's the A. Accepting gift is dangerous. B. Believe no one. Check it to the latter. When people give you so much gift, when they bring things you don't check, it's natural. And then C. Cross-check everything. That's all I can say. Thank you.
All right, let's put our hands together. RANSFORD and ADDO Jr., thank you so much. We'll have Mr. President do a presentation to you right now. And it is still day 2 of the National Project Management Conference. We're going to go on a short break. Oh yes, well deserved.